Hello friends, in this video we'll study about Corynebacterium. We'll discuss about morphology, cultural characteristics, biochemical reactions, toxin resistance, antigenic structures, bacteriophage typing, pathogenesis, laboratory diagnosis, prophylaxis, sick test and treatment. We'll study about these topics under Corynebacterium. So let's begin. Corynebacteria are gram-positive, non-acid fast, non-sporing, non-motile bacilli with average size 3 mm into 0.3 mm. They frequently show clove-shaped swellings. The most important member of the genus is C. diphtheria, which causes diarrhea, sorry, which causes diphtheria in humans. But other species are increasingly assuming a pathogenic role, particularly in immunocompromised individuals. Bretonneau in 1826 called the disease diphtheria because the leathery pseudomembrane produced in the disease diphtheros, meaning leather. The diphtheria bacillus was first described by the scientist named Klebs in 1883 but was first cultivated by Loeffler in 1884. It is also known as Klebs-Loeffler bacillus. Ross and Yersin in 1888 discovered diphtheria exotoxin. The antitoxin was discovered by Von Behring in 1890, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for this work. Now, let's know about the Corynebacterium diphtheria. Its morphology. We'll study about the morphology. Morphology. These are thin, slender, gram-positive bacilli and measures approximately 3 to 6 micrometer into 0.6 to 0.8 micrometer. They are pleomorphic. They are clove-shaped due to the presence of metachromatic granules at one or both ends. With Loeffler's methylene blue strain, granules take up a bluish purple color and hence they are named metachromatic granules. These granules are also called volutin or Babes Ernst granules. These are composed of polymetaphosphates and represent energy storage depots. The bacilli are usually seen in angular fashion resembling the letters V and L. This has been called Chinese letter or cuneiform arrangement. This typical arrangement is due to incomplete separation of the daughter cells after binary fission, and special stains like Albert, that means malachite green and toluidine blue, Nezer or polychrome methylene blue are used for staining the bacilli. The bacilli look green and metachromatic granules appear bluish black when Albert stain is used. They are non-capsulated, non-acid fast and non-motile. Now come to cultural characteristics. C. diphtheriae are grown based on media enriched with blood, serum or egg. Growth is scanty on ordinary media. They are aerobic and facultatively anaerobic. The optimum temperature for growth is 37 degrees centigrade, range 15 to 40 degrees centigrade and optimum pH 7.2. Now let's know about his serum water. This is a liquid medium containing serum. Growth is seen as a turbidity and pellicle formation. Now come to Loeffler's serum slope. Diphtheria bacilli grow on this medium very rapidly. Colonies appear after 6 to 8 hours of incubation. long before other bacteria grow. The colonies are small, circular, white, or creamy and glistening. Now come to tellurite blood agar medium. It contains potassium tellurite 0.04%, which inhibits most other bacteria and thus acting as a selective agent. The organisms grow slowly on this medium and form gray or black colonies due to reduction of potassium tellurite to tellurium, and the colonies may take 2 days to appear on this medium. Based on colony morphology on tellurite medium and other properties, three main biotypes of C. diphtheria, gravis, intermedius, and mitis are distinguished. Tensdale agar, which contains sheep's blood, bovine serum, cysteine, and potassium tellurite, is one of the selective media used for growing C. diphtheriae. Now come to biochemical reaction. Let's know about the biochemical reaction. They ferment glucose and maltose with the production of acid but without gas, that is they do not ferment lactose, mannitol or sucrose. The gravis type ferments. Starch have no such action. It is necessary to employ his serum water for testing fermentation of sugars. Proteolytic activity is absent. C. diphtheria reduces nitrates to nitrites. They do not hydrolyze urea to form phosphatase. Gelatin is not liquefied. And now let's know about the toxin. The pathogenicity is due to the production of a very powerful exotoxin by virulent strains of diphtheria bacilli. About 90 to 95% gravis and intermediate strains are toxigenic, while only 80 to 85% of mitis strains are so. Avirulent strains are frequent among convalescent carriers and contacts. The strain most widely used for toxin production is Park Williams 8 strain, which has been described as a meaty strain and as an intermediate strain. The toxigenicity of the diphtheria bacilli depends on the presence of a toxin which can be transferred from one bacterium to another by lysogenic bacteriophages, of which beta phase is the most important. Non-toxigenic strains may be rendered toxigenic by infecting them with beta phage. This process is known as the lysogenic or phage conversion. Toxigenicity remains as long as the bacteria is lysogenic. When the bacteria is freed of its phage, as by growing it in the presence of antiphage serum, it loses the toxigenicity and become non-toxigenic strain. In addition to beta phage, other phages like alpha, P, L and gamma are also known to carry toxins. Now come to properties. What are the properties? The diphtheria toxin is a protein and has a molecular weight of about 62,000. It consists of two fragments A and B of molecular weights 24,000 and 38,000 respectively. Both fragments are required for toxicity. Fragment A has all the enzymatic activity, whereas fragment B is responsible for binding the toxin to the cells. The antibody to fragment B prevents the binding of toxin to cells and is thus protective. The toxin is heat liable. It is extremely potent. It is converted into toxoid by heat treatment with 0.2 to 0.4% formalin or by acidic pH. The toxoid is a toxin that has lost its toxicity but has retained the antigenicity. It is capable of producing antitoxin. Toxin production is also influenced by the concentration of iron. 0.1 mg of iron per liter of culture medium is optimum level for toxin production, while a concentration of 0.5 microgram or more per liter inhibits the toxin production. Reason for this is not known. The repressor of the tox gene appears to be an iron containing protein. When level of iron is more, suppressor is formed which inhibits toxin production. Now come to mode of action. It acts by inhibiting protein synthesis. It inhibits polypeptide chain elongation in the presence of NAD by inactivating the elongation factor EF2. Now come to resistance. It is readily It is readily dies when exposed to a temperature of 58 degrees centigrade for 10 minutes or 100 degrees centigrade for 1 minute. It is resistant to drying. The organism remains virulent in blankets and floor dust for 5 weeks. It is quite susceptible to penicillin, erythromycin and broad spectrum antibiotics. Now come to antigenic structure. C. diphtheria possesses the heat labile type specific protein antigens K antigen and heat stable polysaccharide O antigen. By agglutination, gravis 10 has 13, intermedius 4 and metis 40 types. A group specific heat stable polysaccharide O antigen is shared by all strains. Now come to bacteriophage typing. About 15 bacteriophage types have been described. Type 1 to 3 strains are metis, 4 to 6 is intermedius, 7 is avirulent gravis and the remainder virulent gravis strains. The only other cornybacteria which are found susceptible to the C. diphtheria typing phages are C. ulcerans and C. Pseudotuberculosis. Bacteriocin, that is diphtherisin typing has also been described. Other typing methods include DNA restriction patterns, bacterial polypeptide analysis and hybridization techniques. Now come to pathogenesis. Diphtheria is most commonly seen in children of 2 to 10 years. Infection is confined to humans only. The incubation period is 3 to 4 days but may on occasion as be as short as 1 day. Infection occurs by way of droplet spread. Diphtheria may be of the following clinical types depending on the upon the site of infection. First is facial, laryngeal, nasal, conjunctival, otitic, vulvovaginal, cutaneous mainly around mouth and nose. Now come to facial diphtheria is the commonest type. The toxin has both local as well as systemic effect. Now come to first point is local effects. The bacilli remain confined to the site of entry where they multiply and start producing toxin. The toxin causes local necrotic changes along with superficial inflammatory reaction. The necrosed epithelium together with fibrinous exudate, leukocytes, erythrocytes and bacteria constitute the pseudomembrane which is a characteristic feature of diphtheritic infection. The mechanical complications of diphtheria are due to the pseudomembrane, whereas the systemic effects are due to toxin. Now come to systemic effects. The diphtheria toxin diffuses into the bloodstream and causes toxemia. The toxin has got affinity for cardiac muscle, adrenals and nerve endings. It acts systematically on the cells of these tissues. The bacilli themselves do not play any part in systemic effects because they neither penetrate into the tissues nor pass into bloodstream producing bacteremia. Now come to complications. First is local. The pseudomembrane may extend to the larynx, which may lead to laryngeal obstruction, asphyxia, death. Now come to systemic. Diphtheritic, diphtheritic myocarditis, which may terminate in heart failure and death. Polyneuropathy and post-diphtheritic paralysis of palatine and ciliary muscles, degenerative changes in adrenals, kidney and liver may occur. Now come to laboratory diagnosis. Laboratory confirmation of diphtheria is necessary for control measures and epidemiological studies but not for the treatment of cases. Specific treatment should be started immediately after clinical diagnosis without waiting for laboratory reports. Any delay may be fatal. Laboratory diagnosis consists of isolation of organism and demonstration of its toxicity by virulence test. Now come to isolation of organism. First point is collection of specimen. Two swabs from the lesions, throat, nose, larynx, ear, conjunctiva, vagina or skin are collected. One swab is used for smear examination and other for culture. Local lesion is usually in the throat. Swabs are collected prior to start of antibiotics and application of antiseptics in form of gurgles. The swabs are rubbed over the affected area and pseudomembrane, if formed, should be scraped with swab. If there is no definite localized lesion, the swabs should be rubbed over tonsils and the posterior pharyngeal wall without touching the mouth parts. Now come to direct microscopy. Smears are stained with both Gram and Albert stain. Diphtheria bacilli show beaded, slender, green rods in typical Chinese letter pattern on Albert staining. However, they cannot be confidently differentiated from some commensal corynebacteria normally present in the throat. Hence, it is reported as the organism resembling C. diphtheria seen in direct smear examination. Gram staining is done to identify Vincent's spirochetes and Fujiform bacilli. Now come to culture. The swabs are inoculated in some media. In culture media, let's know about this culture medias. Lopher serum slope. Growth appears within 6 to 8 hours on this medium. Subculture from Lopher serum slope is made on telluride blood agar and plate is incubated at 37 degrees centigrade for 48 hours. Now come to telluride blood agar. These plates have to be incubated at 37 degrees centigrade for at least 48 hours before declaring these as negative, as growth may sometimes be delayed. Now come to blood agar. It is useful for differentiating streptococcal or staphylococcal pharyngitis, which may stimulate diphtheria. It may also help to differentiate mitis biotype, which shows hemolysis. Now come to colony morphology and staining. On loeffler serum slope, the colonies are small, circular, white or creamy. Diphtheria bacilli grow as black or grey colored colonies on telluride blood agar. Smears are prepared from the suspected growth from various media. These smears are stained with Albert and Gram stain to confirm the morphology of C. diphtheria. Albert staining shows green bacilli with bluish black metachromatic granules, and Gram staining reveals gram positive bacilli that tends to be decolorized easily. Diphtheroids cannot be decolorized as easily as C. Diphtheria. Now come to biochemical reactions. His serum water is used for testing fermentation of carbohydrates, biochemical reactions of C. diphtheria, and let's know about now virulence test. This test, the virulence test demonstrate the production of exotoxin by bacteria isolated on culture. Virulence testing may be done by in vivo or in vitro methods. Now come to in vivo test. Guinea pigs and rabbits are susceptible to toxin produced by C. diphtheria. Two types of test are used, subcutaneous and intracutaneous. Now come to subcutaneous test. The growth from an overnight culture on Loeffler serum slope is emulsified in 2 to 5 ml broth and 0.8 ml of this emulsion is injected subcutaneously into two guinea pigs, one of which has received an intramuscular injection of 500 units of diphtheria antitoxin, that is 18 to 24 hours previously. If the strain is virulent, the unprotected animal will die within 2 to 3 days with evidence of hemorrhage in the adrenal glands, which is the pathognomic feature. Other features which can be observed at autopsy are: first point is hemorrhagic edema and often necrosis at the site of inoculation. Next point is swollen and congested lymph nodes. Next point is congested abdominal viscera. Fourth point is peritoneal and pleural exudate. Now come to intracutaneous test. Intracutaneous test. Two guinea pigs or rabbits are injected intracutaneously with 0.1 ml emulsion of from growth on Loeffler serum slope. On one of these animals is protected with 500 units antitoxin the previous days, that is control, and the other is given 50 units of antitoxin intraperitoneally 4 hours after the skin test in order to prevent death. If the strain is toxigenic, that means virulent, the inflammatory reaction at the site of injection progresses to necrosis in 48 to 72 hours in the test animal, but there is no change in the control animal. An advantage in the intracutaneous test is that 8 to 10 strains can be tested at a time on a pair of animals and the animals do not die. Now come to in vitro test. Ilkes gel precipitation test. This is an immunodiffusion test described by the scientist named Ilek in 1949. A rectangular strip of filter paper soaked in diphtheria, diphtheria antitoxin, that is 1000 units per ml, is placed on the surface of a 20% horse serum agar plate while the medium stain is still fluid. When the agar solidifies, the test stain is streaked at a right angle to the filter paper strip. The positive and negative controls are also put up. The plate is incubated at 37 degrees centigrade for 24 to 48 hours. The toxin produced by the bacterial growth diffuses in the agar and produces a line of growth precipitation where it meets the antitoxin at optimum concentration. Non-toxigenic strains will not produce any precipitation line. Now come to tissue culture test. This is done by incorporating the test strains into the agar overlay of cell culture monolayers. The toxin produced diffuses into the underlying cells and kills them. Now come to prophylaxis. Under this we will study about active immunization. First point is active immunization. One attack of diphtheria provides lifelong immunity for active immunization. Alum precipitation, toxoid, alum precipitated toxoid, in short APT, purified alum precipitated toxoid, that is PAPT, in short, and toxoid antitoxin flocules, in short TAF, are used. Children are generally immunized with formal toxoid. Now come to active immunization is started at 6 weeks of age by toxoid in combination with tetanus toxoid and pertussis vaccine. DPT, DPT triple vaccine. Three doses are given by intramuscular route at an interval of 4 to 6 weeks. Booster doses are given at 18 months and at 5 years. Diphtheria toxoid combined with tetanus toxoid is used for booster doses. Now come to passive immunization. This is an emergency measure when the susceptible persons are exposed to infection, as when a case of diphtheria is admitted to pediatric wards. In such cases, 500 to 1000 units of antitoxin is administered subcutaneously. As this is a hot serum, precautions should be observed against hypersensitivity reactions. Now come to combined immunization. All persons receiving ADS as prophylactic measure should receive combined immunization in an alum containing preparation like APT or PAPT should be preferred for combined immunization, as the plain formal dioxide response is unsatisfactory when given with antitoxin. Now come to Schick test. This is an intradermal test to demonstrate circulating diphtheria antitoxin. This antitoxin may be present either due to previous infection or immunization. This test demonstrates immunity or susceptibility of a person against diphtheria and is one example of neutralization test. Now come to method. A test dose of 0.2 ml diphtheria toxin containing 1 by 50 minimum lethal dose is injected intradermally on one forearm, and a similar amount of inactivated toxin is injected on another forearm. MLD is defined as the least amount of toxin required to kill a guinea pig weighing 250 grams within 96 hours by subcutaneous inoculation. Now come to results. Results are read after 1, 4 and 7 days. There may be 4 types of reaction. First is positive reaction. An area of swelling and erythema appears at the site of the injection of toxin after 24 to 48 hours, reaching maximum in 4 to 7 days when it measures 1 to 5 cm and then fading. The control forearm injected with heated toxin will show no reaction. A positive test signifies that the person is susceptible to diphtheria due to either absence or lack of adequate amount of circulating antitoxin. Now come to negative reaction. There is absence of any reaction in either forearm. It indicates that the toxin has been neutralized by sufficient amount of antitoxin present in the blood and that the person is immune to diphtheria. Now come to pseudo reaction. There is erythema occurring in both forearms within 6 to 24 hours and disappearing completely from both forearms within 4 days. This indicates that the individual is immune to diphtheria and he is also hypersensitivity to the components of diphtheria bacilli. Now come to combined reaction. Fourth result is combined reaction. The initial reaction is similar to that of pseudo reaction. Erythema disappears in the control forearm within 4 days, but it progresses in the test forearm to a typical positive reaction. It indicates that the individual is susceptible to diphtheria and hypersensitivity to bacillus. It is necessary to immunize such persons, but the vaccine may likely to induce reaction. Now come to treatment. C. diphtheria is sensitive to penicillin, erythromycin and other antibiotics. Diphtheria patients are given a course of penicillin to stop cases from becoming carriers. Erythromycin is more active in treatment of carriers. The antibiotics are of little value as these cannot inactivate the toxin already present in patient's body. When a case is suspected as diphtheria, anti-diphtheric serum should be given immediately as the mortality rate increases with delay in starting antitoxin treatment. In moderate cases, the dosage recommended is 20,000 units intramuscularly, and in severely ill cases, 50,000 to 1 lakh units are injected, half the dose being given intravenously. Now come to other pathogenic Corynebacteria. C. ulcerans is a bacillus related to C. diphtheria, which cannot cause localized ulcerations in throat, clinically resembling diphtheria. It resembles the gravis type, but it liquefies gelatin, ferments tree hollows slowly, and does not reduce nitrate. It produces two types of toxins. One is identical with diphtheria toxin and the other resembling the toxin of C. pseudotuberculosis. It is pathogenic to guinea pigs. The lesions produced are similar to those produced by C. diphtheria. It causes infections in cows, and human infections may occur through cow's milk. Some consider C. ulcerans as a variant of diphtheria bacillus. Diphtheria antitoxin is protective. C. pseudotuberculosis, also referred to as C. ovis, causes pseudotuberculosis in sheep and suppurative lymphadenitis in horses. It produces a toxin which differs from that of C. diphtheria. The toxin kills guinea pig in 24 hours. C. bovis commensal of cow's udder is a doubtful agent of mastitis. Many of them cause infections in immunocompromised patients. C. jejunum is an important pathogen in neutropenic patients and those receiving antibiotics. It is usually multi-resistant and responsible only to vancomycin. C. minuticium and C. tetanus are associated with superficial skin infection. Some bacteria which are initially in genus Corynebacteria include Arachnobacterium hemolyticum and Rhodococcus equi. A. hemolyticum may cause pharyngitis, peritonsillar abscess, cervical lymphadenitis, osteomyelitis, and brain abscess. R. equi is found in soil. Human infection is rare, although an increased incidence in immunocompromised patients, especially AIDS patients, has been reported. Now come to diphtheroids. Let's know about diphtheroids. Commensal Corynebacteria are normally present in the throat, skin, conjunctiva, and other areas. These may sometimes be mistaken for C. diphtheria and are called diphtheroids. The common diphtheroid include C. xerosis and C. diphtheryticum, which is found in the throat. In general, diphtheroids possess few or no metachromatic granules and are arranged in palisades rather than in Chinese letter pattern. Some diphtheroids are indistinguishable from Diphtheria bacilli microscopically and require to be differentiated by biochemical test and more reliable by virulence test. Finally finished. Any questions regarding this, you can ask me in the comment box and subscribe my channel to know more updates. Thank you.